There are moments when I feel genuinely good, moments of calm, contentment, and a sense that life, at least temporarily, is enough. Yet those moments often provoke a deeper confusion. What does it actually mean to feel content? What standard are we using when we say that someone is happy, at peace, or fulfilled? At first, these words seem self-evident. We use them constantly in everyday conversation as though their meaning were obvious. But the more closely we examine them, the more elusive they become. Happiness can mean excitement, satisfaction, pleasure, tranquility, or simply the absence of suffering. Peace can refer to emotional stillness, moral reconciliation, or existential acceptance. Contentment may suggest gratitude, resignation, or the feeling that nothing essential is missing. This, this concept appear familiar, yet they resist precise definition. One influential account comes from Yuval Noah Harari, who suggests that happiness occurs when expectation align with reality. The idea is elegant and intuitively appealing. We suffer when reality falls short of what we hope for, and we experience happiness when the two converge. But this explanation quickly encounters difficulties, at least for me. Imagine that someone harbors the desire for another person's death, and that desire is fulfilled. The alignment between expectation and reality has occurred, yet the result is not necessarily joy or peace. More likely, it produces guilt, emptiness, or moral unease. The example is extreme, but it reveals an important truth. The fulfillment of desire is not sufficient to explain happiness. This raises a more fundamental question. If happiness is not merely the satisfaction of expectation, then what exactly are we seeking when we seek the contentment? For for some, the answer lies in the afterlife, a state of ultimate fulfillment beyond the limitation of this world. But if we suspend that possibility and focus on human experience within ordinary life, the question becomes immediate and unavoidable. What does it mean to live well here and now? At this point, it becomes clear that the real challenge may not be happiness itself, but our attempt to divine it. Whenever we define happiness, peace, goodness, or wisdom, we are trying to impose conceptual order on experiences that are fluid, contradictory, and deeply personal. We want to make them measurable and intellectually manageable, as though they were scientific objects rather than lived realities. Um, Human existence resists these kinds of crystallization. For centuries, philosophers have asked the same enduring questions: what is good? What is evil? What is wisdom? What is happiness? Their answers differ not because the questions are trivial, but because they concern dimensions of life to be reduced to a single formula. This does not mean that truth is impossible, or that all perspectives are equally valid. Rather, it suggests that some of the most important realities in human lives are approached through interpretation, refinement, and ongoing dialogue rather than through definitive conclusions. At this point, we all know that argument. I mean, uh, but our everyday language often obscures these complexities. We use the word happiness to describe radically different state of mind. Sometimes we mean euphoria, the intense but temporary rush of emotion. Sometimes we mean pleasure, the satisfaction of a desire. At other times we mean something quieter and more enduring, a sense of inner coherence and peace. The distinctions matters. Happiness as excitement is fundamentally different from happiness as tranquility. One is explosive and fleeting, the other is subtle and stable. Yes, both are described by the same word. which partly explain why discussion of happiness so often lead to confusion. The the same ambiguity appears in discussions of wisdom. Slavoj Zizek, for example, has pointed out that concepts such as wisdom become problematic precisely because if every tradition defines them differently. Epicurus, for example, defined wisdom as the pursuit of tranquility and freedom from fear. Seneca, on the other hand, understood it as living in accordance with reason and accepting what lies beyond one's control. Both accounts are persuasive, yet they are not identical. As a result, as a result, wisdom can seem like an object endlessly passed from one thinker to another. Everyone pursues it, but no one possesses the final definition. But perhaps, perhaps this is because wisdom is not primarily a concept to be mastered, but a virtue to be embodied. It is less like a theorem to be proven and more like a way of living. In everyday life, and especially in cultures that value moral instructions, conversations about happiness and wisdom often become overly prescriptive. People declare that true happiness is simple, or that, or a wise person always behaves this way. Such statements are usually well intentioned, but they can give the impression that profound, complex human experience admit easy answers. Even art, one of humanity's most enduring forms of expressions, has never received a universally accepted definition, especially here in Indonesia. If art itself remains open to interpretation, it is unsurprising that happiness and wisdom do as well. One possible response is to adopt a pragmatic view. Perhaps what is wise is simply what proves useful in living. This approach echoes utilitarianism, which evaluates ideas and actions according to their consequences. Yet usefulness alone is not enough. Not everything beneficial in a narrow sense is genuinely wise. Human life includes moral, relational, and existential dimension that cannot be reduced to calculation of efficiency or utility. And so we arrive not at a final answer, but at a more modest conclusion. Perhaps the task is not to discover a definitive formula for happiness, peace, or wisdom. Perhaps the task is to refine our understanding continuously, to test our assumptions against experience, to refine our beliefs in light or of suffering and insight, and to remain intellectually honest about what we do not know. Understanding, in this sense, is like a knife that must be sharpened each day. But this knife is not meant to like kill other or harm other. It is meant to cut through illusions, to examine our own lives, and to distinguish what is merely comforting from what is genuinely true. If there is such a thing as wisdom, it may consist precisely in this discipline, not the possession of perfect definition, but the willingness to keep questioning them.